Hello and welcome to the 700 Club. Let's head over to the CBN News Desk for today's top stories.
Thanks, Gordon. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. What President Trump calls his big, beautiful bill is headed for a rude reception in the Senate. Some Republicans are unhappy it doesn't cut enough federal spending. Dale Hurd reports.
The president's mega bill only passed the House by one vote and faces more GOP opposition in the Senate. Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson, who calls it the Titanic, says the bill is going down because it doesn't cut enough from the federal budget.
The only number we ever heard about was $1.5 trillion, which sounds like a lot, but it's only $150 billion per year. This year we'll spend over $7 trillion. $150 billion on that is basically a rounding error.
It also faces Democratic opposition over cuts to food assistance and Medicaid. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson's response, they're doing the best they can.
We've got to turn this aircraft carrier. You don't turn an aircraft carrier on a dime. It takes a mile of open ocean to do it. And it took us decades to get in this financial situation. We can't just flip a switch and get out of it overnight.
The so-called Big Beautiful Bill would extend President Trump's 2017 tax cut, lift the federal income tax on tips and overtime work, and give $50 billion to resume construction of the border wall. Meanwhile, President Trump has announced he'll delay his proposed 50% tariff on imports from the European Union. The tariffs were set to begin this Sunday, but Trump has pushed them back to July after a conversation with European Commission head Ursula von der Leyen.
She just called me, as you know, and she said she wants to get down to serious negotiation.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
President Trump is strongly criticizing Russia's Vladimir Putin for his latest attack on Ukraine. Over the weekend, Russia launched hundreds of drones and missiles, killing at least 18 people.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all.
The president also posting on social media, if Putin tries to take over all Ukraine, it will, quote, lead to the downfall of Russia. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is in Israel today. The visit is a show of solidarity between the two nations after the murder of two Israeli embassy employees in Washington, D.C. last week. Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram died at the hands of a gunman. The suspect allegedly told authorities he did it, quote, for Palestine. Meanwhile, a man suspected of trying to firebomb U.S. embassy offices in Tel Aviv is in U.S. custody. Israeli officials arrested and deported Jonathan Neumeyer, a citizen of the U.S. and Germany. Lawmakers in our nation's capital are rallying to fight anti-Semitism. One member of Congress told CBN News about his effort to hold members accountable to do more. CBN's Michelle London reports.
It's a very, very serious problem.
Rep. Smith is referring to the overwhelming majority of hate crimes committed against Jews each year, even though statistics show this community only represents 2% of the entire population. Since October 7, 2023, the day Hamas launched its brutal attack on Israeli soil, Smith says there's been an increase in violence against the Jewish community, especially students on college campuses.
I was at Rutgers University when a group of Hamas promoters and supporters, and I went and I talked to some of the Jewish students, then I talked to them, and they screamed in my face this close, about how bad Israel is.
In 2024, the Anti-Defamation League tracked nearly 10,000 anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. alone, the highest on record.
The hearing will come to order.
It's why Smith is sounding the alarm, holding a series of hearings to review the global threat of Jewish persecution. Ted Deutsch, CEO of the American Jewish Community, testified that anti-Semitism has become normalized and amplified by technology.
It's a bar in Philadelphia where a sign saying "F the Jews" is lit up and paraded as people laugh. Or when many people come together to work on a music video about a song called Heil Hitler, with no one seeming to bat an eye.
We don't just sit there and wait for them to attack.
Smith wants to make sure Congress acts alongside the Trump administration to take countermeasures against these attacks, by starting in his home state.
I have a number of synagogues in New Jersey and in my district that, we've done more from a homeland security point of view, putting up more cameras, more situational awareness efforts to ensure that, these terrorists do not do something evil, withholding funds to certain colleges and universities that have shown a propensity to enable this kind of barbaric behavior.
Smith says the key to combating global Jewish hatred starts with Christians joining in community.
I do think Christians first and foremost need to pray for Jerusalem, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and for Jews everywhere, become in solidarity with the movement.
Michelle London, CBN News, Washington.
On Memorial Day, we honor the brave members of the armed services who gave their lives to protect our nation. Today, we look back at one of the most brutal and iconic battles of World War II. 80 years ago, U.S. Marines launched an assault on a remote volcanic island in the Pacific Ocean. Today, veterans return to honor the fallen and remember the horrors they endured. CBN's Chuck Holton has the story now from Iwo Jima.
In February 1945, nearly 70,000 U.S. Marines landed on the tiny volcanic island of Iwo Jima. What they encountered was unlike anything they'd faced before.
Enemy fire keeps us pinned down. We want to pull the beach over our heads like a blanket.
An enemy they couldn't see, a battlefield designed to kill, and a fight that would test every ounce of courage.
It was tough going. Many didn't make it.
Anything they had, they were shooting. Shovels, they were fighting with shovels. They were fighting with rocks. They were fighting with their guns, anything that they had. It was just a melee.
The Japanese defenders had turned the island itself into a weapon, fortifying it with hidden strongholds and miles of tunnels, all part of a deadly strategy that made every inch of ground a fight to the death.
Oftentimes, the United States service members never saw a Japanese person. So it is an odd battle for us. The Japanese at this time of the war were using a thing called fukaku in Japanese, which is defense in depth.
When the Marines landed on Iwo Jima, most of them didn't see a whole lot of enemy soldiers. That's because there weren't many of them in the open. Even though there were 22,000 to 23,000 enemy troops on the island, they weren't on the island so much as in the island. That's because they were in caves like this one. They had dug almost 11 miles of caves, some of them as many as 7 stories tall, under Mount Suribachi. And that's why when they dropped the bombs on the island and threw artillery at it, they really didn't kill too many of the enemy troops, because they were all safely underground. Amid the chaos and carnage, a single iconic moment gave the nation hope.
Suribachi is ours, a toehold on the southern tip of the island.
A lot of people talk about the flag raising, which happened on the 4th day, like that's the culmination of the battle, when in reality it was just the very beginning of the battle. It is an island that saw 6,821 Americans killed.
I didn't know what to think. I mean, they told us not to get real too happy over the thing. The war wasn't over. It wasn't over at all. We were going to have to push to the other end of the island.
I cried. To see Old Glory up there on that hill, God, that was something else. You can't believe that.
I was on the airstrip, and I just happened to look, and the flag went up. I said to the guy, look, the flag come up, And I like the other guys, there was a lot of clapping. I didn't hear no clapping. All we said is about time,
The Japanese defenders held out almost to the last man.
They knew they were going to die. There was no going home from Iwo Jima. Every single man on that island knew that this was the end, and they fought accordingly.
From their fortified positions on Mount Suribachi, the Japs look right down our throats.
Red Beach is quiet and peaceful today, but on that day, the day of the invasion, it was nothing but blood and chaos and courage up and down this beach as far as you could see. The men who landed here did so with very little hope of ever getting home unscathed. And you have to think about the high value they must have placed on what they were doing to continue to charge this beach, even over the bodies of the 566 men who died here on the first day alone.
Wreckage along the beach was only a small part of the cost of 26 days of fighting. We stacked the helmets of our dead in neat piles.
More Americans died on Iwo Jima than in any other Pacific battle. But the lessons learned here would shape the future of warfare and medicine for decades to come.
To put this in perspective, we spent 10 odd years in Iraq, 14, 15 years in Afghanistan. Combined in that period, we lost less men than we lost on the island of Iwo Jima in 36 days. That's a frightening statistic. But it also is an amazing statistic telling you the advances in military medicine, telling you the advances in tactics and strategy. We learned the lessons from this battle and continue to teach them in our war colleges.
For many who served on bloody Iwo, the memories are carved deeper than the island's caves, and the cost of victory still echoes today.
My daughter-in-law says to me, "Why are they always honoring you for?" I said, "Not honoring me, they honor the service. The real people that should be honored, the people in the ground." I said, "Those are the heroes, not the ones that came back."
8 decades later, the youngest of the veterans who survived Iwo Jima are now in their late 90s, so few remain. This may be the last year any of them are able to return, to walk these beaches once more and honor the comrades they left behind. From the hallowed ground of Iwo Jima, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.